How do you reconcile that? If a God is saying this is the way, but the vast majority of people that I've created, they're doomed. Did I get you?
Well,
Hey, welcome to the Table Talks podcast. My name is Tim, and today I'm joined by my friends Vivian and Khoa. Thanks for joining us and being a part of this. And over the course of several weeks as a church, we've been in this series called Explore God. And during Explore God, we've been talking about the biggest questions around life, faith, and meaning. Like, is there a God? Why is there pain and suffering in this world? Can I really know who God is? And a whole lot more. And one of the things that we've been acknowledging during this series is that just hearing a talk about this subject doesn't really fully encapsulate the full meaning of what we're trying to explore together. And that's why as a church, we've been encouraging everybody to get in table discussion, to join groups, to find community, to be able to further dig deeper into these big questions of life, faith, and meaning, because they matter. They matter a whole lot. And so we're doing the same here together. We're having a table discussion. We're going to be honest with one another. We're going to share our own struggles and wrestling with these things. And today's question and what we're tackling is Christianity too narrow? All right. So Vivian, Khoa, we were just talking about this, but both of you kind of grew up with different faith backgrounds. So tell me, what kind of led you to eventually make the decision to go with being a Christian and eventually, I guess, sticking with it also because you're still here?
ladies first.
Okay, ladies first. So yes, I grew up in Hong Kong in a Chinese family, very typical Chinese family. The way I like to describe to people who probably don't really know that type of faith or belief in a typical Chinese family from Hong Kong is that if you guys watched the movie Mulan before?
The new one or the cartoon?
The cartoon. Maybe the new one too. I don't remember the new one. But the cartoon one.
Don't watch it.
And you remember that Mulan will go to a temple, a place that her ancestors basically reside in. So there's a belief in a lot of Chinese people is that our grandfather, our grandmother, the people that gone before us will go to a place kind of like a heaven. I don't really know. No one will ever explain to me. But they basically go to a place and they somehow obtain some kind of like higher power to bless their next generations. So growing up, we will have a little plaque for our ancestors, and it's just kind of one plaque that represent all of them. And then there's some kind of like when there's any big holidays, we will basically offer incense, offer chicken and wine to our ancestors. And that's kind of, that's sort of the background for me personally. And then in a bigger picture, there's some temples in Hong Kong. There are people that worship different demigod, if you will. And obviously, because it's a very international city, there's like churches and there's synagogue and there's, different things of, people can worship from. So that's kind of the background until when I was 11, when I moved to the United States and reside in San Francisco.
So how did you end up coming to becoming a Christian then?
Yeah, so I actually became a Christian when I was about 12 or 13, kind of after Hong Kong, was in San Francisco, and my parents, as very typical immigrant family, had to work lots of hours and trying to find childcare in the summer. So at that time, we didn't know there's free childcare, free 1 week vacation Bible school.
Oh, nice. They got you.
Yeah, San Francisco, Chinatown. They thought it was just like, like a free fun things for the kids to do. So end up at a Presbyterian church in Chinatown. It's still very dear to my heart. And then just at that place, I actually found Jesus in the basement when I was 12, 13 years old. Prayed that prayer of salvation. And from then on, it has been a very long journey, but at the same time, that's how I was introduced to proper Christianity.
And were you the first one in your family then?
Yes, definitely. So and some of my cousins actually went to the same daycare program, whatever.
Yeah.
Vacation Bible school.
Yeah. Did they come to a decision too, or was it just you?
Yes. So my cousin, one of them now still actually serve as a elders of that church.
Oh, wow.
So I don't know, 30 years later.
Same church.
Same church.
Nice.
Yeah. Same type of, just now sort of grew up, become a leader, and then young adults, still serve at the same church and find his wife at the same church. His kids go to the same church. So it's really, really cool. And then some other cousins, also still some of them in their own journey.
Yeah,
but there is some deposit of faith.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Nice. What about you, Khoa?
Yeah, for me, well, I was born here in the States from my parents who fled the war, Vietnam. And so we grew up, they're Buddhist. And so kind of similar to what Vivian was talking about, that's the kind of environment I grew up with. There's, from what I understand, they're not very, very, they're not very practicing Buddhist. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but in essence, like the only thing I ever know about the Buddhist faith is whenever there's some type of festival or something that comes up, kind of similar to sometimes people show up for only Easter or Christmas services.
Yeah.
We would only show up to a temple, a Buddhist temple, for certain occasions or something like that. And as a kid growing up, I didn't really understand what it was. I was just doing what my parents told me. And then as I became a kindergartner, a young kid, my parents were looking for a place to, just like Vivian's parents, right? Working really hard. And so they want to have the kids to have a good education. And so they put me in a private school, happened to be a Christian private school. And so that's where I came to know Christianity for what it is. But I didn't understand that. I just knew that, hey, I have all these friends at school and I want to be like them. And so I just kind of followed along. It wasn't until later on, as I got to a teenager, and I was feeling a little conflicted because I'm going to a Christian school. I want to be like my friends. I'm learning things on the Christian faith. But on the weekends, I would go to a Buddhist temple. And sometimes it's just a go to, my parents put me in a Buddhist temple to learn Vietnamese, to make sure I don't lose that language. But of course, it's tied in with Buddhist practices and stuff like that. And so I was kind of conflicted for a while. Ultimately, in middle school, I just felt like the way that my dad tried to describe faith and Buddhism, what it means to him, he told me like, you just live your life the best you can. And then when you pass away, you're put down like essentially in front of like this TV and you look over your life and you do more good things than bad things, then you're good. And that's it. That's all there is to life. And I'm like, oh, man, it feels like very, very, like, what is it all for? What is it all worth if that's all it is? And maybe I guess it could be that's all there is. But I just feel like, man, I just feel like there's hope in something else. And so that's why I kind of led. And with the friendships I've made and the understanding of like, well, why people do certain things, kind of like led me a road. Like, I feel like I want to go towards Christianity more than Buddhist, especially since I didn't really understand like the practices. Like, you're just going there. And for us at the temple, I just remember sitting there in a room, someone's knocking on some type of like parabolic bowl, and you're chanting the same thing over and over. And you have to sit quietly for a long time. Your legs get tired. And as a kid, you just don't understand why I'm here.
Yeah.
I think that's the case in some churches too, though.
True.
Some Presbyterian churches.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
That's true. Anyways, that's how I started my journey and trying to figure out between like, what does my parents believe? Yeah. And they've been really open about it. They said, you know what, this is what we believe. You don't have to believe that.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like there's any fighting or anything like that.
Yeah. I'm curious for both of you, like when, like you've come to make this decision and now like you've grown up in faith, you've both been Christians for a long time. And like the reason we're asking this question, is Christianity too narrow, is because Christianity itself states that it is the way to God.
Yeah.
Right? So all of us have people in our lives and our families who believe otherwise, whether it's Buddhists or other things. How do you reconcile this notion for you, like on a personal level with like, I've come to this decision of faith, but the rest of you essentially are doomed, right?
Yeah. And that's sad,
Yeah.
right?
sad.
Because I mean, especially close family members,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, I think there are a few aspects. I think there are times I feel like as any Christian, we have to explore our own journey, and the journey is never linear.
Mhm.
Some people came to faith through a pretty dramatic experience, right? And some people came to faith through their intellects, or they do a bunch of research and like, oh, okay, this is the one I'm going to end up with because this one makes the most sense. And some people came to faith through friendships and through a sermon. There's so many avenues, and we all know that. But I feel like personally, I have to kind of check to deepen my faith. There are different aspects I have to be able to explain logically. I'm a pretty logical person. So one of the books I really like is that was very informative. I already Christian at that time. It's called The Case for Christ. And it's a really good book because I feel like there is like great evidence, if you will, to know that why Christianity makes sense in my head logically, right? Based on that book, Case for Christ. And obviously there's a lot of books that has been very informative, but this is the one I can think of right now. And I think it's because of that deepening in faith. So when the people around me, some of my siblings are still not a Christian, when they do believe in other aspects, I just felt like, wow, I'm sad, but at the same time, it's like, I know that everyone has to come to their own, basically conclusion in whatever ways that God is wiring them. And what we can do is to pray for them. And what we can do is to pray for really just that divine appointments that God will, put that on the path, right? And I feel the same way for myself too. There's a lot of divine appointments that continue deepening my faith.
Yeah. Have you wrestled with that, Khoa, with your family?
I think I have. I mean, one thing that, as a parent of kids, right, it's one thing to pray for your parents and pray for your siblings, but it's another thing when you have your own kids and you hope that they also, follow in your faith, because if we truly believe that there is a life after this, you want your kids there.
Yeah. Exactly.
But it's not our decisions. We can't do anything about that. It's their decision. Just like my parents told me that it's like, however you believe, it's your own faith journey. I think I had a conversation once with my kids, and we talked about what's your moral list of moral codes that you go by. Everyone, in a world where you see so much evil and you see so much right and wrongs, people are trying to figure out what's right and what's wrong.
Yeah.
And that's always a conversation. And so for us, if we're believers in Christ, we at least have, a guideline for the most part, what we believe is the right path and what is wrong. And then we try to navigate our lives around these set of rules. But for other religions, I just feel like, well, they have their own list of things, where there's a list of like, this is how I know I'm a good Buddhist, or this is how I know I'm practicing the right things of religion, because it's not always black and white. And when I read the Bible and when I've been following my life and trying to discern this, there is a aspect of justice and there's an aspect of love that I see in our faith. And there's an aspect of, a lot of other religions felt like you had to do a lot of things to be right with that religion. Whereas in our faith, I feel like it's really Jesus that did it all for us.
Yeah.
So it's not like I have to make sure I check this box, then I'll be able to go to heaven. Or I feel like other faiths, as I was researching in my own journey, I was like, you got to make sure you do this, you do this, and then you don't know. I might make it or not.
Yeah.
But I'm just going to try to, up my score as high as I can with whatever life is throwing at me. and then hopefully I made the cut.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's double click on that a little bit. Like what makes the Christian faith stand out or different, I guess, in a sense? Because we're talking about it, Christianity being too narrow or exclusive even would be a term. I think it's fair to say all faiths are kind of mutually exclusive, right? It's hard. I think it's hard to make you were talking about logic. I think it's hard to make a logical argument for multiple faiths having or multiple faiths being right at the same time. So if each faith has their own belief about being right, what makes the Christian faith, I'm not asking like what makes it more right, but what makes Christian faith different? You spoke a little bit on that.
I think that's the crux of the matter, right? When you come down and you share your faith, someone's going to ask like, well, what makes what you're saying is right compared to what I'm saying is right?
Yeah.
Right. And ultimately I can't change your mind, and same thing, you can't change my mind. It just comes down to that personal journey. And if you're striving to find that question, you got to go through it, not only like logically, which makes very sense because things that we can see, touch, and understand, but also like when you sit and have that time to actually wrestle with the question, I think ultimately you're going to start walking towards a journey towards what you think is the right thing. I think the one thing about Christianity is there's a lot of times in the Bible where God says, test me. If you truly believe that I am God, or if you want to believe in my promises, test me. And so there's a certain things where people have tested God with, if I test that, like my giving, for instance, right? In the Bay Area, right? The cost of living is high. I just brought a bunch of friends over from different parts of the States, and they come over here and like, how much does the medium cost in San Jose? A home in, I was like, it's like, it's 1.3 right now for a median price in San Jose. And they're like, and so like,
there is no God.
There's injustice.
So, I mean, like, and I think about it, I was like, well, why do I give, when it costs so much money? And I truly have to trust, like God says that if you give, he's going to bless the other 90%.
Yeah.
And so it's like, all right, I'm going to trust it and give it a go. And we've been good. We haven't felt like, oh, now our life is falling apart because I miss like that small percentage of giving away.
Yeah.
There's times of like trials, rough stuff we're going through with family, and just, asking God for peace and asking God for like, is there a way? And things happen. And I don't want to go too much into the story, but I remember when my father-in-law passed away, there was just so many things that came into place that you just couldn't understand it. But the whole time, so many people were praying for us. We were praying for us, and ultimately it wasn't obviously the outcome that we wanted, right? But there was just so many things in place that was telling us, hey, God is like, hey, I'm here too. I'm here going through it with you.
Yeah.
In other faiths, I mean, I can't imagine like, I talk about my dad a lot. Every couple of weeks I come over to my dad's house and he goes, hey, remember this guy, so long ago? I'm like, nope, I don't remember him at all. I'm like, well, he's dead, And, when you talk about like death and stuff like that, especially in the older age, it just feels like, well, that's it.
Yeah.
That's about it. And I feel like, oh man, that just feels very, very disheartening.
Yeah.
I guess.
I think studying world religion, I'm not a big expert of studying all world religion, but I think part of it is that Christianity has a claim that I don't think other religion has the same claim, that Jesus came and say, I am God, I am the way, I am the only way. And it's a very bold statement, right? If you just kind of like examine, I don't know, whatever, 10 religions that people are practicing in this world, maybe I'm sure there's thousands, but so interesting. The claim of Christianity is saying that I am the way and I am, there is it is a free gift, right? Salvation is free. You don't have to do anything. Don't have to earn it, which is very, again, what you just talked about earlier, is very counterculture because we always, no matter what culture you live in, we are here to make a living. We're here to earn something. We have to do something in order to get something. So it's super counterculture, I would say, throughout human history, right? I think that claim is really radical. The claim is very much counterculture. And then the claim is also very much like out of the place of the Father's love for us, God's love for us, which again, I mean, knowing myself, I know it's hard to accept sometimes that there is someone actually out there, the God of the universe actually do care so intimately for us that he's willing to send his son to die for us. So I just think it's just mind-boggling just to think about that. Sort of these like tenets of like the Christianity faith, right? And comparing to other religion or even compared to no religion, right? It's like, well, is that true? Is that something that we can really cling on to? But even as personally, as I explore, as I feel like even the spark of that moment when I received salvation and then the journey of, I think will be a journey of a lifetime for us to accept this, to really walk with God about, our faith. The more I grow in my faith, the more I feel more intimate and know that, there is a God, and he sent Jesus to die for me. So I think, but we have to open up our hearts first to be okay with that claim, as the tenants before we can really explore that,
Yeah, as you were saying that, maybe I heard recently how, like I just shared how every faith essentially has their belief in saying that they're right about what they believe. So every faith has some level of exclusivity to it. One of the things that makes Christianity, I think, different and actually more inclusive than others is what you were alluding to, which is you don't have to do anything to get the prize, essentially.
Yeah.
Like the prize is given to you on the front end. And then the work of the change that happens in your life happens from you essentially continually saying, yes, I want to follow you. And I want to follow Jesus. It doesn't come from first, I have to clean myself up and I have to do these things and do these acts and practices and go to church even and all these other things and get baptized. It first comes with receiving it. You got it. And then the work of change happens in you as you continue to follow him. And I think that is like a flipped paradigm compared to most other faith that makes it really different.
Yeah.
Now, I want to also press in a little bit. I have another question here about this.
Well, before you go there, I was just thinking to myself, do you think that some of the other religions are very siloed? Like the Christian faith, I don't go down the street and see like the local Buddhist temple, like inviting people in to come and learn about their faith or anything like that. At least that's what I'm saying. And it's like Christianity is like the goal is, the Great Commission is to bring more people to Jesus. It's a religion that says, hey, Jesus is here for everybody, but what if there are other religions? And if we're really narrow, I would feel like other religions are even more narrow because sometimes you don't even know that this is a religion.
Yeah, the part of it too is like a lot of religions are also tied into culture. Yeah. And even ethnicity in some senses.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so, you can't unless you're born there.
Unless you're born there.
I have a quick story over that. I remember I was in New York on a Friday, and I think the guys, I'm sure they're from a local synagogue, and they're going around and probably a blessing or some kind of blessing. But then they ask around and have to make sure you're Jewish first before they can do that. And I didn't understand why until I talked to another Jewish guy at the bagel shop Saturday.
Stereotypical.
Yeah, no, and then he explained to me that it's because it is like what you say, it is more ethnicity based, which again, I can respect, I understand that, but it was just interesting, right? That there is some, exclusivity, right, if you will.
I think now in today's world, things are different where faiths are way more open. Like you can convert to Judaism without being ethnically Jewish, and pretty much every other faith as well. I do think one thing that is different that you mentioned about the Christian faith is Christians are one of the few faiths, and then the subsects of Christianity, that are actively proselytizing, like trying to get people to essentially come to their understanding of their own beliefs as well. And that is interesting. That is a distinctive, because if we really believe that there is a truth for salvation for mankind, then we don't want it to be something that's kept to ourselves. And we have a commission that's given to us by Jesus. That makes it different. But the tension then that I wanted to go back to, which I think is the question that a lot of people have on this, is, man, what does it say about God if he's saying this is the only way? And like in our world today, I don't know what's the percentage of the world that's Christian today, but it's not a majority. It's still probably one of the biggest world religions, but it's still billions of people right now who do not follow it. Mm-hmm. So what does it say about him then? Like, how do you reconcile that? If a God is saying this is the way, but the vast majority of people that I've created, they're doomed. Did I get you?
Well, the lens I'm kind of looking through right now is parenting right now. Like I can tell my kid, hey, the best way for you to, the best way for you to cook a steak. This is the best way for you to do it. And I can explain to them, lovingly. I explain to them like, this is how you cook a steak. They can follow my instructions, knowing that, no matter what they do, I still love them. This is probably a really bad analogy. But
where are you going with this,
I'm kind of hungry.
Come on. I know, we gotta go steak after this.
But usually when I, if we compare the steaks, mine comes out better because I'm like, all right, I'm trying to teach you the way. This is how you do it. And they would agree that, hey, Dad, you cook the steak better. That's really bad analogy. But I think,
because in one scenario, the end result is you eat a bad steak. And this other one I'm talking about,
yes, it's, eternal.
It's a little bit different.
Yeah, I think it really comes down to is like
the stakes are different.
The stakes are different.
There you go.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Yeah, we're doing that here. I think it just comes down to is like we do have, our God is a God that wants everyone, right? And that's why, we hear the story of the good news that the reason why he wants everyone is the reason why Jesus came and died for all of us, so that not only will we get to know him based on his teachings and stuff like that, but also that he paid the price for our sin is what we believe. But alluding to even the question last week about, why all the pain and suffering stuff, right? There is, and that's not excluding anyone. Everyone in the world is suffering pain and suffering of some sort. Mm-hmm. And how do you reconcile that with any religions in the world? Mm-hmm. I think the fact that knowing that, and being reflective on like, well, throughout my whole life, if this is a God of love and justice, where are times in my own life that I've seen love and justice, and even sometimes love and justice that I can't even explain, right? And having, like I can live my life pretty selfishly. And then when I got married, and started to, it's like, oh, I can't get everything I want. And a lot of times, like, I don't treat my wife well. A lot of times I don't treat my kids well, but there's a love that they have for me that I'm like, man, after all the things I've done, all the ways I screwed up, you still love me. And as much as that is real in my life, that's how I also look at it from God's love. All the ways that I've screwed up based on if I'm trying to say that I'm a follower of Jesus and I'm trying to do good in the world and I screw up, but there's forgiveness, there's restoration, and there's blessings on that. I just have to reflect back from time to time to say, like, where do I see these instances of love and justice in my life?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's good.
I think God is just, but also God provides a way for every single human being. I don't know the mystery. It's hard to reconcile that, the mystery of, 400 years ago, my ancestors, right, in China somewhere, southern China, from my understanding, they probably never heard of the good news of Jesus. And now they're no longer with us. So what does that mean? I don't really know. I really don't know.
Yeah.
I can't, I'm not God. I'll have to remind myself a lot of times, like when there is like, I was talking about being logical. It's like, logically, I cannot wrap my mind around that. It's like, what about the people who were in, just haven't heard the good news and then they pass to this, from this earth. What happened to them? I don't know. I don't know. Right. And I think it's okay to wrestle with these unknown, because we're not God. But I do know that God provides a way. And even like a very recent example, like my own grandfather, my paternal grandfather, who I actually grew up with, lived with us for many, many years. He actually accepted Jesus at his deathbed 2 days, before, before he passed. And I think some of the stuff is like, as much as he would have passed, without knowing Jesus, but at the same time, through just prayer and intercessions, and I really do feel like God had provided a way for him in particular. And I can't say, I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say for everyone, but I just know that God is just and God is love, and God's provide a way for every single person.
Yeah. It's hard to know, right?
Yeah.
I think about this question often. Like I grew up in France that is like 99% non-believing. The main religion in France is atheism. It's like the state religion pretty much is atheism. And it's hard to go back there and you look around and it's like all these people are doomed, essentially. Is that what I'm believing? And it's something I wrestle with. And at the same time, when like I'm convinced in my own faith from my experiences, like I know that I've experienced and heard from God himself. And when I read the scriptures and I search it and I see the character of God, I know from what I read and see of him and from what I've experienced that he's good. And so I have to acknowledge that there's an aspect of it that I don't see and that I don't understand that is beyond me. And that hopefully on the other side of eternity, I'll be able to make all sense of it. And I know no matter what I see on the other side of eternity, I'll still believe and know that God is good, that he's gracious, that he was just. Like we talked, there is also a sense of justice, I think, that our God has. So. Hey guys, thanks for being a part of this conversation with me. I know this was a lot to unpack, and I know it's still even lacking. Like it feels like there's so much more that we could be talking about, but unfortunately we don't have the time for it. But hopefully everybody watching, you were encouraged by this. I hope that you're joining more conversations around these subjects. These things matter a lot, and we believe that there's nothing more worthwhile than spending your time and exploring these big questions of life, because if they're true, then they have eternal significance for you, for me, and for our world. And if you want to continue in our conversation with us around this, I just want to encourage you, we have a Discord community you can engage with. You'll see the link below right here. You can join and be a part of the conversation. If you have questions you want me to ask in the following weeks, I'll be there as well, and I can write those questions down so we can ask for our next guest next week as we're continuing our conversation together. And join us on Sundays. We're doing this exploration of faith every single week as a church. And we'd love for you to join in, whether in person on one of our campuses or online, which meets on our YouTube channel. So make sure you join us there as well. So thanks so much for being a part of it. Vivian, Khoa, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Hopefully we'll see you all next time. Bye.